Everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're talking more Fables. This is volume 18, Cubs in Toyland. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent, and we're talking about Fables again. This is volume 18, Cubs in Toyland. And this is collecting. They used to put it on the back. This is a pretty thick volume. It's not as thick as Rose Red, but there is like 8 issues in here. 114 to 123. So we're closing in on the end here. There's only 22 volumes of the original run. This is volume 18, so there's 4 more after this, as well as 25 issues, mixed around in those last 4 volumes. So we're in the home stretch here. And, we're done with Geppetto, we're done with Mr. Dark, and now we're just kind of focusing on our main characters again, who we haven't focused on in quite a while. Talking about Bigby and Snow White, they were the main driving force through the first, third of that battle, first 2/3 of that battle with Geppetto, and then they got pregnant, and she had kids, and they kind of veered off into, not being main characters anymore. Whereas the last couple of volumes with Rose Red and Hair at the Wind, the OGN Werewolves of the Heartland, which I reviewed on this channel. You can go check that out, which you should read before, at least after between 16 and 18. You can read it anytime in between there. We're dealing with our old main characters again, and that's cool to come back to these characters that we love, that we haven't really talked about because they kind of went domestic on us, and they raised their kids. So now we're finding out more about their kids in the storyline. So this storyline is basically all Bigby, all Snow White, and all their kids. We have the North Wind has been chosen, and she's in training. She's imagining what she's going to look like when she's all grown up, fierce and terrible, just like her grandpa. Meanwhile, one of the other Cubs, Therese, she got this toy boat at Christmas in one of the last issues. It's like, why did she get this toy boat? That's really not explained, but what this toy boat is, a magic talking toy boat who takes her to Toyland. And this Toyland is not your regular Toyland. It's grim, it's gritty, things are broken down, stuff doesn't work. All the toys there are broken apart. It's kind of like Sid's room in Toy Story 1, just an entire land of that. And they think that she's going to be their queen and help fix them, and she doesn't really know what to do. There's some weird prophecy that they're talking about, and so it's kind of like these two things are not adding up, and they're getting frustrated, and bad things start happening. So then you have another Cub, Dare, who was the oldest of them all, who goes and finds his sister, and ultimately things. Dare goes through some tough things in this issue, in this storyline, and something happens to him, and it's not really quite resolved if it's permanent or if it's going to come back later on. So at the end of the issue, we're kind of rejoining the family. So that's very interesting. There's also something in the last 2 issues of this storyline is drawn by Gene Ha. It's a 2-parter. And it's kind of this weird flashback to when Bigby was just your average big bad wolf. He met a green witch, and she gave him a destiny, which was like, you're going to die in 3 days. And she gave this other guy a destiny that says, you're going to marry the most beautiful girl in the land with raven hair, pale white skin as snow, and ruby red lips. And you're like, wait a minute, that sounds like Snow White. How does that guy marry Snow White and Bigby doesn't? Well, it turns out these destinies can in fact be switched. So you have Bigby trying to go and fetch that destiny from this other guy. And that's kind of the last 2 storylines in here. And it turns out that actually was the case, right? So it's a pretty interesting storyline. So we're coming up on the end here, Fables. Again, I think these are all very strong volumes. None of them kind of stand out over one another the way that they were before the Great Fables crossover. Right now, I feel like they're plateaued, not in a bad way, but in a consistent way, and that each volume is fun to read. It's got a lot of Mark Buckingham art, so you can't go wrong there. And whenever you do take a break with a different artist, Bill Willingham finds a new story for them to tell that doesn't feel like a fill-in in the main Fables arc. There's other stories he can tell with other artists, and is using Mark Buckingham to advance the main storyline of the Fables universe. And I think that's smart. It always brings in fresh art, always brings in a break from Mark Buckingham when he was doing this on a monthly schedule, and it breaks up the story in a way that the next time you go to a new volume after you've read these like little, they feel like chapter breaks, honestly, at the end of all these volumes when you get the new artist with the flashback tale or whatever they're doing. You're always ready to start that next volume, with Mark Buckingham and go on the regular Fable storyline. So very, very cool. I'm very positive on this series, honestly. I read a lot of these. The last 5 Fables volumes, videos I did from Rose Red on to this one, I read in a weekend. They were so good. So really phenomenal storytelling in here. Really consistent artwork, consistent storytelling. And I don't know if I've read a comic that's been this good for this long. You're talking about volume 18 here, for crying out loud, with basically the same writer and artist. So credit to Mark Buckingham, credit to Bill Willingham and all the guest artists for making Fables as awesome as it is so far. I'm excited to read how this wraps up in the next 4 or 5 volumes. So let me know down below if you think Fables is as awesome as I do, and we'll see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.